Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's April 17th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it seems like the volatility has really slowed down quite a bit, especially today. I mean, this looks more like a typical ES kind of day compared to what we've been seeing. The bars are starting to get back to a little bit more normal. There's still a few larger bars, but you don't see all the volume we were seeing. We were seeing 3 and 4 times this amount of volume not long ago. So maybe things are kind of getting back to normal, but still a lot of, enough trades today. This is more of a normal amount of trades you'd see in a day, 7 to 10 trades, maybe 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. It's kind of a typical ES kind of day, and it seems like we're maybe getting back to that. So you had to be a little bit patient today. When we came in and started out at 7 o'clock, it was just, I mean, you can't even hardly see that. It's just a lot of little small tight bars side by side, a couple of dojis in there. You don't want to trade that. I mean, you might treat that like a little failed break higher, but the bar's not bearish enough. Then by the time you get a bearish enough bar, you're right back across the lows. So I don't think you want to risk it there. You get a lower high here, but the bar is too bullish. And now you got two legs back down, and you're back to the original trend line right here. This is really your signal bar, not nearly good enough. Here's another one, still not very good, but when it breaks above that one, and you've made 3 higher lows and 3 higher highs, that's a pretty good sign right there, especially off the trend line. This confirms that trend line. So, and there are 2 legs down. You got a trend line, a break, and new lows. So you might want to be a little aggressive and try to take that one. And it does turn out to be a good trade. Prices keep going. And notice your new low here, and then you make a first entry short there, and you push higher, and you make a second entry short here, and prices fail. And I got my bar marking this because this truly is your signal bar, but you didn't enter till it wasn't a failure till it broke above this bar, but your stop till it's go below this bar. So I just wanted to explain that. So again, just to clarify that for anybody new, this is your signal bar, but when prices broke higher above this bar, that's where your failure occurred, and so that's where you'd want to go long, but you still have to put your stop below the swing low, which would be right here. You always want to put your stop in the right place. And of course, we got a newer low here. It's lower than that swing low, so we're working up. First entry short, you move up, you get your second leg up, and now you got a failed second entry short when prices break above that bar. And again, that's right off the trend line, so I like going long there. And we don't go very far, and we come back down. And of course, I drew that. Actually, I drew the trend line off the highs and drug it down. And when we bounced right there, that's a good sign. But there's more reasons to like this trade here than just the bounce off the trend line, because that really is just your second touch. So these trend lines are really not confirmed yet. So what you have to understand is that let me show you this. You got this little double bottom basically here, and this is a second. Notice we made the low there, then we tested it once, we tested it twice, and we actually tested it twice here, and then the third time, and it's a little break lower, turns back up, makes a fairly bullish bar. So you got a double test, you got to bounce right off a possible trend line based off getting your line off the top, and notice that little gap there. That's where you normally see. That's normally a good sign when prices tend to gap over these important trend lines for whatever reason, and so that gives you a lot of it gives you a lot of faith in the fact that this line is probably right, and you just drop it down. And so that was a great place to enter. There's a higher low right here, and there's probably room to get out before these highs. However, that was your break higher above this, and that's a perfect doji. And not only that, it's an inside bar to a relatively neutral to negative bar, so I don't like entering there. And then it pushes up and pushes through, pulls back, gives you a failed second entry short, and it actually broke lower and turned and went out the top side, so I like going long there. And that line you see drawn there is really, there's actually some resistance there. but that's really the lows that I drew here later in the day. You would have wanted to have a short-term little line there, and just to mark that. But you wouldn't have had it when that bar set up right there, as you can see. That just looks like a break higher after a failed second entry short in a trap. So I like going long right there. You had to kind of ride this thing out, but it still worked, and that's why you put your stop where it goes. And it would have been, it's hard to watch it back all the way up to here and not exit. But if you had them, you would have survived, and off it goes. And that's why I tell you to just put your stop where it goes. Don't worry about it too much, and just either be right or wrong. Because if you start trying to guess, you'll exit there every time, and then the one time you don't exit, then it'll back up and stop you out. So it's just, I don't know what it is, but the law of averages says if you're trading, you're going to get it wrong every time if you start guessing. So however you play it that way consistently. Either always exit out when it starts backing out, or always just hang on to your trade. And if you're sim trading, my opinion is let every trade play out and learn from it, and use it to study at the end of the day. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't really matter. It's a sim trade, so you're using this to learn anyway. So that's my feelings on it. But this ends up taking off and turns out to be a nice trade, and you would have had a runner there. And it looks like there's going to be an overshoot up here. You're not sure yet, because this could be it could be a midline, and maybe there's another line up there. So you don't really know how to play this just based off that one overshoot. But notice you get two legs back, and you get you got a little support running across there, and you get that little failed break. It went lower first and turns and goes out the upper side on a second entry. There's enough room to get out, so I like entering there again. We do shoot up, make a new high, and because you've got this short-term trend line working up, and that's really the first break of it. So, and then it moves higher, and then of course we come right back down. And you don't want to be shorting this yet. It's still a little bit early to be thinking about shorts. So prices are trending back down to the other side, and where they bounce right off the trend line again. And this bar, I'm not sure if this bar went higher or lower first. I was not watching it when that happened, so I'm not sure. If it went lower and then turned up, you might consider, but still the fact that that's a fairly strong trend down to that line, I'd wait on the higher low, which comes here. And I know this one went lower and turns up, and when it broke higher there, it actually gaps up and doesn't come back, but you still could have got filled on a limit order there. And you got plenty of room to get out before the highs. And you would have gotten out, you wouldn't have got much more out of it. And so it does turn out this is an overshoot, and we're just kind of going sideways. And really, you just want to stay out of that. It's too flat. There's a doji in there. There's 8 or 10 bars stacked up. Drops out. And at this point, you might be looking for something to go long, but again, you just start stacking up there. So better just to stay out of that. And you finally break higher, but your signal bar here is so bullish, and you got a bearish bar inside, so you got a up, down, up, and then you make another one down, and there's too big a chance that you may make another one up, and so you just have to kind of skip that trade. And it does, it drops. It turns out to be a nice trade, but you don't know that ahead of time, so this is one of those you just kind of have to watch it go and let it go. And of course you get two-leg correction. So, and what really prices were trying to do here, notice that when we broke out of this congestion here, we never came back and tested that. And notice we came back, we test that, and we go higher again from there. So prices were trying to, you have to look at it like prices are probably trying to come back to test that breakout, because that's what usually happens. And usually it'll come back real quickly and test it and go on, but in this case it just went on and it never came back. So there you are, you got two legs back. And so if you got a really good higher low here, you might consider this one. In the end, you get a higher low. Notice how many times we tried to go below that line. Twice we went below it, we couldn't close, and then 1, 2, 3 more times, and we couldn't even get below it, much less close below it. And look how the closes are higher each time. So when this broke, when this made the lower high, notice you got a high here, and then these two bars are lower high. So when you broke above that, the fact that we couldn't go lower here, you're probably going at least back to the EMA. So if you've got room, you may want to try to see if you catch a low here. And you would have, but it doesn't turn out to be a real long-term low. Sometimes you catch those, sometimes you don't. But a lot of times on these breakouts, that's what'll happen. You'll catch a major low. In this case, you don't. Pulls back, and you actually get a break tick lower here. But again, that's your signal bar. This is the inside bar. You're going right back into a lot of resistance across there. There's been a lot of support and resistance across there. So I don't like going long there, even though it works. And of course, now you're back to the top, so you might look for a short, but you really need to wait on a lower high. And you got this one working down, and you get your first close outside, and then you get this really big bearish bar. So this one's too bullish for just a lower high. You really need a bearish bar. But look how bearish that one is. So when prices broke below there, you might try to get in here. You might put a sell stop there, assuming you got to figure we're probably going back down to test the lows again. And so you might want to risk that one. And but your stop has to go above this bar because that's really bearish. Really what I would like to do is put a limit order back up here where you would have gone short, but you wouldn't have got filled on that. So the only way you would have got filled on that was with a limit order right at the bottom, right at even with the low of that bar, or a sell stop right there. And so this one's real close to being green, but we fulfilled every reason to go short now, even though this thing doesn't end up selling off. But look, your main two-tier channel earlier has a close and a new high. The lower, flatter, darker two-tier channel has an overshoot, a close outside, and a new high. And so there's a lot of reasons to be thinking we may get a reversal there. Turns out we're just still in a trading range, and we actually break and go higher and then come back down. And what I would have done here is when we broke higher, I would have measured this and look for a possible measured move. We don't quite get it. We miss it by a tick, it looks like. But hey, that's close enough to say you got a measured move, and then it sells off. So that would have been my target when we broke higher here if you were still in a trade. I don't see anything to get long here. There is a higher low right here, so you might have considered that one, especially with this little short-term trend line working up, and that's the first real break of it. So you figure we may, and we haven't got back to the high or the last high. We haven't got back to the overnight high, or I wouldn't say the overnight high, but the main resistance high or the newest high on that last breakout. So you might go long right there. It's right at the end of the day, but you know, it's still a trade you might consider. So I should have probably marked it. Definitely needs to be green, but you could flip a coin on that one, whether you want to call it blue or not, being that late in the day. And you see, though, if you'd have caught it, it was a fairly nice move. And like I said, if you look for that measured move, you could have ridden this one all the way up following that measured move. And that got you into the 2 o'clock hour. So, yeah, not quite as many trades today. Not quite as much volatility either. Still a pretty good trend up, and still some pretty good moves and trades. So hopefully you had a chance to find a decent trade or two today and make a little money. But yeah, not much else we can say about today. It's just and I will say this. Notice that we had two trends working up. Both of them had a break and a move to a new high, and then we had a correction. We didn't sell off, but that's, you know, you're just expecting a correction. A lot of times it's a sell-off or a reversal, but sometimes you just go sideways, and usually it'll last about an hour or so. So we broke out of here about 11:15, and we went sideways really up until somewhere right in here was when we started higher. So 1:15. So that was about a 2-hour correction. You're going to get at least usually a minimum of about an hour. So even though we didn't sell off, that still fulfills the correction, you know, our correction rule. And then, so now you can rally again. We could have started off here and made a whole nother leg up or whatever, but that didn't happen. It still turned out we just made a measured move up on a range, and and maybe this should have been still here where I originally had it. And if you measure it there, we probably got a perfect measured move. So anyway, it was a good trading day. Nothing spectacular compared to some of the days we have had, but still a good trading day. Um, Hope you had some success today. Hopefully you learned something, but we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.